It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
How do you know all this? What are you, some kind of real estate agent?
He's a realtor. There is a difference somehow.
John, that's sort of interesting. You know, the big story was it last month where the realtor, American Association of Real Estate Agents. What is the organization? You know this.
I'm not sure, but it had to do with their fees.
Right, and they're restructuring. They got sued and the whole bit, and that was a big story. And all of a sudden, it's like died off because people go, "Oh my God, real estate's going to change. All these agents are going to quit." I mean, and there's a perfect example of a story that was like a big story, and then all of a sudden, it just fell apart. And it's like there's no follow up. Are there real estate agents? Are Rick and Tracy still selling houses? Do you know? They're still doing that?
Well, I think it went away because I think most folks just decided to go out. Most agents just decided to go out and lease radio stations and then move into new offices. And you only have 24 hours in the day.
Right. Okay. John, you've got access to the Post-Dispatch. I just saw this, and your buddy Jesse Bogan 8 minutes ago put up a new story. Man who leaked Trump's tax returns was taught to take stand in St. Louis. You've got subscription to the Post, correct? You can actually look at that.
Oh, I do not. Nope. I would never give them a dime unless it was like I would do a $1 for a 6-month thing. But no, in fact, Brad, I give links to people to avoid the Post-Dispatch.
I know you do that. You do very well. I was just curious what that is because this is the guy that I think he was a contractor for the government, and he essentially leaked Donald Trump's tax returns. And so this story, if folks want to find it, go to my website and scroll down. Jess Bogan has it up. It's like a hero profile because it's these folks praising him, and because this gentleman has such a deep moral belief in doing what was right. This guy is 39 years old, and then they went to some people. He went to some uppity school, Crossroads College Prep. So that's where liberals like that want to be uppity and want to claim to support the urban community send their kids to Crossroads. Isn't that
it's a small private school in the De Bolivar Place neighborhood?
That's what I was going to say. Isn't that down off of Forest Park, off of Del Mar? Okay. So you've already got this article. Then I saw it. It just says it cleared 8 minutes ago, but apparently it's been on for a while.
So excuse me. What the Post-Dispatch will do sometimes is post something, let's say on a Thursday afternoon, and then it's essentially a software thing. So sometimes the timestamp will come up where it'll say 8 minutes ago, and that's wildly incorrect. This was up last night. Okay, so you've already got it on your list then. I do, yep. Okay, so then he was taught. What's the story? He was taught to do this by the nice people at this school. Hey, you need to divulge people's private information. Is that what they're saying? Yeah, and they talked to this oldster. There's a guy whose last name is Lieber. Well, excuse me, my voice is all over the place today, Brad. There's an oldster named Lieber who has wasted his time with running against. I think he ran against Ann Wagner, and he wasted time running other stuff. But he was, I guess, a confidant of this guy. The guy's name is Littlejohn, or you might want to call him Micropenis. I guess would be another nickname. If he was an Indian, I guess his last name would be Littlejohn, and it just continued. It followed his family, I guess. And he's in the Marion prison, and he wouldn't go on record, and his attorneys wouldn't go on record talking about the case. But this old liberal guy, they talked to this Lieber guy, and the Lieber guy is like, oh, he does the right thing. Yeah, it says here in the Post-Dispatch piece that this old liberal got beaten by Todd Aiken and Ann Wagner. So when you've been double teamed by both of them, that's the ugliest wobbly A-frame I've ever seen. But anyway, the Lieber guy talks about how important it is to stand up and do the right thing, whatever. And that's break the law. Yeah, correct. Yeah, if it's against Donald Trump, because people in power, and I saw this when I was skimming last night, the idea is, when people are in power and when bad people are in power and you're acting for the right reasons, go ahead and break the law. Well, I've told you this before, and I have
friends of mine that are computer experts, and they tell me that a vast majority of the computer hacks are done from the inside, that it's not all these Russian and Ukrainian hackers and the Chinese hackers that are trying to break through our firewalls and get all this information. And I told you the goofy story that years ago when I did business with Southwestern Bell Mobile Systems before they got bought out by Singular and then it's now AT&T, that I have business with them, and we were doing we had a business deal with them, and I would go for meetings from time to time out there at the headquarters on Manchester, just west of 270. And on 2 separate occasions, a guy approached me in the parking lot who turned out to be a private detective, and he was offering money. He thought I was an employee. He was offering me money to give him information on certain cell phone customers, and these were essentially, he was a private detective, and he was working for a divorce attorney, and they were trying to prove that the spouse was, fooling around on them and getting cell phones records and stuff like that. And he offered me $100. And I'm going like, I don't work here. I'm just.
And you negotiated up to 110, and then you broke in, you used your key card, and then the rest is it. You pulled a Megan Green. Right. You used your key card, and you gained access.
I got my key card. I didn't win it. No, but once again, see how many times, I have had. I'll give you a story that I've never told you before. You always tell me I tell the same stories all over. Okay, my friend Alan Barklage. He crashed on a Saturday, and a very tragic thing. As a matter of fact, coming out of Bi-State Parks Airport, he barely got off the airport, and the engine shut down, and he tried to do an auto-rotation landing and ultimately crashed right in front of the fire department in Sauget. People familiar with Sauget know exactly what I'm talking about. The firemen got him out of the helicopter. They did CPR and took him to St. Mary's, I believe, when St. Mary's was still in East St. Louis. Then they life flighted him from St. Mary's to Barnes. He was in Barnes Hospital for a week. I have 2 nurse friends of mine who told me the story that there were firings over that because people who had nothing to do with Alan Barklage but had access to the computer system were going into the computer system and checking on his condition. And somehow the computer system was able to figure out who exactly that was, and they called those people in and they say, okay, you violated the trust of the hospital. And I think a couple of these people were actually giving reports to friends of theirs that worked like various local media outlets. Well, he's still in ICU. And they fired, I think she told me 2 or 3 nurses and a bunch of other people, some back office people. And I'm going like, okay, once again, I could tell a story what happened to me yesterday where I had someone sitting at a computer terminal tell me my life history, my health history for the past 20 years, which was sort of spooky.
Oh, wow.
It was weird. And I'm going like, well, in 2003, you had a car accident. I go, how do you know that? Well, it's right here in your file. I go, really? So anyway, that's crazy stuff. Okay. Couple things to talk about. Last night, the Al Smith dinner. Do you know the origins of the Al Smith dinner in New York?
No, I don't. I don't know how it came to be.
It's a charity. I believe Al Smith was some bon vivant kind of guy, and I don't know exactly what his situation was. But what they decided to do was they decided that in the true fashion of Christianity, to get together once a year, a bunch of high-profile people, and just have fun and diss on each other and tell jokes and essentially self-deprecating and not self-deprecating, just have fun, okay? And it's for a bunch of charities, and I think last night they raised like $9 million, okay? And I think the deal is that for the first time, like in 20 years or something like that, one of the candidates for presidency in the election year, obviously we're in that year right now, did not show up, and that was Kamala. But they gave her a special dispensation last night where she actually did a video thing with a former SNL person, stuff like that. But Trump had some great lines. What you want to know to me, the funniest line was Chuck Schumer. You know who Chuck Schumer is, Mr. Grumpy, and Chuck Schumer was sitting there on the dais, and Trump gave the line that I can't remember exactly word for word, but he said that if Kamala Harris does not, he talks about how the Democrats are so incredibly woke that if Kamala Harris does not get elected president, that Chuck Schumer is going to run, and he's going to change sexes, and he's going to be the first woman president.
I saw that.
I'm thinking to myself, that's pretty. And supposedly Chuck Schumer didn't laugh or anything like that. But see, the crazy thing on that is, once again, why do you always have to, beat each other up? It's like I've talked about this before. I mean, John, yesterday you went on great detail about how you love listening to the Viper and you listen to 1280 and the whole bit. And for 1 minute did I say, John, don't talk about those other radio stations.
Absolutely not. Because you have the whole rising tide theory.
I do. I mean, and once again, I went out of my way to praise John Shepard and Chris Blevins, two of the most respected people in the broadcasting business in St. Louis, who would never, ever, ever do anything illegally as far as the FCC is concerned. Never would they run too much power or steal my STL frequency or do kind of stuff like that. They would never do that kind of stuff. And that's the point where I will praise both of them because they both run super clean, well-run operations. Right, John?
Absolutely. Well, as far as I know, they do. And you seem to reinforce that, Brad. And from what I heard going through their website, they invented the term Westplex.
But they didn't.
They invented Westplex Radio. That's what I heard. No. They're the station for the Westplex.
Oh, God.
I made that. They didn't say they invented that. But Westplex is all over their station stuff.
Right. And thank you very much, I mean,
See, that's the spirit.
Right. Thank you very much, guys. Actually, that was invented by Steve Kasper's father, Vern Kasper. And I'll be up front and tell you that because I sat one day matter of fact, too many days with Vern for lunch when Vern was, God, it's hard to believe Steve's dead too now. God.
I know. But did you hear the posthumous thing about Steve Kasper that his family came out and said?
No, what? Is this going to be good?
He's Kasper the Friendly Ghost.
Oh, God, here we go.
Because he had a choice up there. He could be the Crabby Ghost or the Friendly Ghost. And now he's Kasper the Friendly Ghost.
Well, that would be a change for his personality. So he wasn't too friendly to me, but that was a whole nother story. See, Steve, I forgive you for all the nasty things you've done to me. You know what? I don't have any ill will at all. I just, as a matter of fact, if I'm driving by your grave site, I won't urinate on your grave. How's that?
Because they just put cameras in there. Because they've had so many reports. His family was like, the headstone is slightly yellow, and none of the other ones are. So they put cameras in. So that's magnanimous of you, Brad. You're not going to swing by there anymore. I have, in your all black garb.
I have two, and I'll tell the story, and I'm not kidding when I tell you the story. I have two Vietnam veteran friends of mine, okay? Two friends of mine who have told me their goal in life is to outlive Jane Fonda so they can go urinate on her grave. So that is how much Jane Fonda is liked. And the one guy was actually in combat in Vietnam. They were both in Vietnam, but the one guy was actually being shot at while, if you know the whole story, Jane Fonda went to Hanoi and she was, essentially. And see, here's the interesting thing. If that would have been John Combest or Brad Hildebrand, we would have been arrested and essentially tried for treason. But since it was Jane Fonda, we're not going to touch her. If the rest of the story is during the Vietnam War, she was a Vietnam War protester. She went to Hanoi, which was North Vietnam at the time, who we were fighting, and she had meetings with them. And there's a famous picture of her manning a North Vietnamese anti-aircraft gun, and which shot down quite a few American pilots, including guys like John McCain, who was shot down and held prisoner. Wasn't he like 6 or 7 years in the Hanoi Hilton? He was in
the Hanoi Hilton. Yeah, they tortured him and everything.
Yeah, sad stuff. Okay. I'll tell you what, we're actually on time this morning, at least this break. Let's take a break, and we will be right back, and we'll finish up with Segment C. And do you have all sorts of good stuff for Segment C, or are we going to just vamp it?
Well, I'm happy to pick something out, Brad.
Okay.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?